Good evening and welcome to the October meeting, of the Oakwood Community Education, or Oakwood School Board meeting. Roll call, please.
Bradford. Hicks. Here. Janeski.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Ludwig. Here. Plattner.
Here.
Smith.
Here. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As a reminder, this evening we will be recording the audio and live streaming it. Mr. Manager, any public participation this evening?
I do not believe so.
Okay. Did everybody have a chance to review the consent agenda? Yes. Do I have a motion to approve consent?
So
agenda?
moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Motion by Janeski, seconded by Plattner to approve the consent agenda items as submitted. Bradford. Yes. Hicks. Yes. Janeski.
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Ludwig. Yes. Plattner.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carried by roll call vote once.
Agenda item 4, committee reports, strategic planning.
Sure. I just wanted to give a brief update to the public on the strategic planning process. We've had a couple of meetings. We've got our next meeting scheduled for November the 3rd at 5:30. Our second meeting basically was to try to finalize our vision and mission, because as once we move through the mission, the vision, we need to get to the values and the goals. And at the end, we want to have a product that is exemplary, that we can provide to the board for a recommendation, as well as be able to share with the staff and the community. So Michelle Kimbrough and Tim Lee and myself were designated to meet with Dr. Volz and Dr. Zabilka today. And we're able to kind of flesh out a little bit more of mission and vision. And there will be something that will be presented on the 3rd. And we will always revisit this to see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. Nothing is final yet, but I would say that things are getting very clear right now with some of the things that we're talking about from the group. So we're excited for that next meeting. There'll be a 4th meeting in December, and that should be the completed meeting. And after that, we'll have a product ready to recommend to the Board of Education. Is there any questions in regards to the Strategic Planning Committee? Just appreciate everyone's involvement on that particular committee. Thank you.
Agenda item number 5, administrative reports. Mr. Maynard.
Okay, well, first of all, you'll notice we've got a few building principals not with us tonight because we wanted to have them on site at their buildings, supporting and being with the teachers and being able to interact with parents tonight. So I do have our assistant principals here tonight. We've got Mr. Shelton and Mrs. Acton here, who will be involved in our meeting, but I just want to kind of explain why they were not here tonight. And just out of respect to our guest, we have Mrs. Diana Vargas and her team are here tonight. So I thought it would be a good opportunity for me to just kind of hand it over to you, Diana, so that you could kind of talk about the presentation tonight to the board and some updates on our building project. So thank you for being here.
And, of course, hi everybody, great to see you again. Thank you for having us. This is just a printed copy of what we had emailed yesterday, so I think everybody might have it already. But if it will help.
Yeah, be good.
You're welcome. How are you?
Good.
I think too, we've got a guest back there. She might want a copy as well.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Diana.
That should work. Oh, you do?
And actually,
Perfect,
I
okay.
got it up on the computer.
Oh,
too,
okay
so-
then.
Okay. Just so the school board knows, while Diana is handing this out in a paper copy, if someone were to need a paper copy, I'm happy to provide that here from the district. I also have this put on our website right now on the homepage. So that way it's available already publicly.
Thank you so much. So first and foremost, we just want to say thank you to the Board of Education here at Oakwood for choosing us to be your partner for this project. We are thrilled to be here and to do this for you guys. So I'm actually going to hand it off to my team and I'll introduce them. The point of today is really just to provide an update for the work that we've been doing so far, where we are today, and what's going to be next. So with that, Brian Roskins, who's our senior developer, and Rob Delaney, who's the project manager, that is working on this now and will be managing the project as we move forward. You guys want to move together, or? All right. You want to talk about the permits? I mean, we'll just go down the one more document that we shared with everybody.
So the first bullet point, you can read it yourself, I won't read everything to you, but we got the permits ready for submission to the ROE. They, with the signatures we received tonight, Larry, from your signature that authorizes us to submit it to the ROE, we'll turn those in, and the intent then is to permit the structural, architectural, and civil plan in phase one, so we can get started with construction while we're working through the details for the mechanical, electrical, and Rob's been involved in more of the detail with that, with the architectural team, so I'll let him fill in the blanks. And
Yeah, so what's been going on kind of behind the scenes? I know, we're kind of looking at the anticipation of breaking ground and we're getting close, but we're getting a lot of the ducks on a roll before we actually hit the ground, because the last thing you want to do is get on the project and then get it to a point and stop and wait. So what we're doing is trying to tee everything up so when we do hit the ground, we go. And so part of this process, we've been working with the city closely to try to figure out all their needs and requirements based on what we're looking to do with the building. And we have provided them everything that they need to document to what we're planning on doing with the project. Once we got their blessing, we was able to incorporate it into the drawings and kind of package this up with the ROE, which the permit application that you guys signed tonight. This whole process is kind of running parallel with not only the design, but material procurement. So what we've been able to do, all those items that we know have been hearing bad horror stories of as far as availability, we've cut those things loose. We've been finding ways to engineer the most practical way to have things that are available to us. The basic idea is here is that we're here to make a timeline, we're gonna make this timeline. And so our goal now is to have a kickoff meeting with the school district. I've talked to John, we've kind of come to a point that we're gonna bring everybody in as far as the general contractor, us, the school district is concerned. Kind of game plan on how things are gonna kind of roll out once we actually do hit boots on the ground. Get you guys blessing, make sure there's no surprise of what we're doing here. And then the following week, we're looking to break ground. So a lot of the little details we've been kind of working out behind the scenes with playground equipment, ways to kind of stage things, how we can bring in stuff to where we're basically out of your way. And more importantly, once we actually put things in place, how we're gonna be able to route your normal public during construction. So those are all the things that are going on here. We're looking to have that the first week of November. But as far as progress goes, we've got a solid team. We've got people ready to go. Now it's just a matter of getting the blessing from the ROE, which we shouldn't have any issue. Like Brian said, we was able to work with them because, a lot of times with the permit process, you typically have a complete set of permits that include everything from the structural, civil, all the way up to the plumbing. Well, given the fact that we are at a crunch, we want to beat the Mother Nature. And so talking to the ROE, we pretty well was explaining to them, hey, if we can put this package together where we can break ground, let's get the stuff, let's get it shelled in. And then all the stuff that comes on the inside, we can do it when there's snow on the ground. And they've seen where we were coming from and they're willing to work with us, which is great. So kind of sum everything up, we're moving in the right direction, and we look forward to breaking ground with you guys, and you guys can start seeing movement outside. So.
The second page of what we gave you is the floor plan. It's been updated. That's got from the screen right now. It's got some dimensions, some notes. That's the details and doors, windows, lockers are all spelled out. Those are details that we've had to be working through behind the scenes. I know it looks like we've been absent for a little bit because we've had to figure this out. Those details are also expanded, Larry, in the set of drawings that I handed you this morning this evening before we started.
Okay.
That have some different elevations, some different details on that kind of information, as well as the site plan and civil work we've been looking at in the city. So that is a complete set. I have that electronically if you'd like a copy of that at a later date.
All right.
And if you look at basically, if you look at the drawing itself, the amount of detail that's on it, there's 42 pages right now that we've got up to this point. And so there's probably gonna be another 20 to 30. So a lot of the behind the scenes stuff is basically trying to get all of our, like, get everything in the row, get all the details to the point to where when we, like, going back to the idea of making sure that we don't slow down once we get the ground done. Get as much information out front, and then that way we can catch up to the information that we got.
Okay.
How are lead times looking for materials? Yeah.
Depends on the material. There's a reason we said that we've got roofing insulation on order and structural steel for a slot in there. Roofing insulation changes week to week from what I hear, depending on how much you're ordering and what it is. I think our insulation right now is a few months out still, even though we put in the order.
We are looking at, if you don't mind me jumping in, we are looking at options that can actually use a different type of, instead of using the ISO. The big point is trying to get the R value that we're looking for, the R30. So our engineering team has kind of things running, kind of like we go with the idea of parallel. Is we've got the idea that we're going to order this ISO and get this on order, which we're looking at getting delivery probably the first part of next year. But we also have another option that may actually cut that down even in half. So we're trying our best to try to figure out how we can beat the clock. And same thing too with structural steel. We found ways to design in order to have things more available to us, to where once the progress of actually getting the footing and foundation in, it's going to be real closely after we'll start actually erecting this thing, where if we would have went with the other means that we're thinking outside the box in order, let's say, to make this happen.
Well, I'm underselling the fact that we've looked at block framing, large steel structure and light gauge steel structure, and the team has been evaluating, going back and forth with lead times, costs, and really just help installation time of all of those different products. He's been managing 3 different opinions at the same time to come up with what will be the fastest for you guys and have a solid construction.
Our whole goal is to make this as an easy process for you guys, and that's the whole purpose. You don't get to know what's happening behind the scenes. We're making it happen.
We're happy to share.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I very much have appreciated is just your accessibility and your availability. You know, anytime there's a question or clarification that's needed, I just appreciate that. I appreciate that you have been on site, you know, as much as you have, and just working through the details, working with our village, and you know, some of the preparations, and just your organization, your communication, availability. I just want to say thank you for that. I appreciate that. Appreciate that, Diana, you and your team. And I'm glad that you're leading us through this process. So. Any questions or anything?
Board, any additional questions? Thank you.
Okay. All right.
See y'all later.
All right. Sure, we'll be talking soon. Our Friday call, right? Thank you. All right. Let me kind of continue on. Okay. So just a few other items I wanted to bring to your attention tonight. It's part of my superintendent's report. The annual financial report, I typically ask for an extension on that because a lot of times we don't make that by the deadline. So it's just easier to go ahead and ask for the extension, and that way you're covered. So I talked to Russ Lee, and he is planning to be here in November to give the presentation on the audit and the findings of the audit that we will be asking for your approval, you know, that night, obviously. And he said that things are looking very good. So that will take place in November. As far as an update on the district and Oakwood Education Association arbitration case update, I don't really have a lot of new information other than as a reminder, I'll be not available on November the 15th as I'll be a witness in that situation. So I have a meeting next week to get more information going into that situation. So hopefully I'll keep you posted. I wanted to let you know that the school maintenance grant application, we had done one back in 2020. You've heard me say this many times, so I apologize for continuing to talk about this, but I think it's important because just prior to COVID, in the January of 2020, I believe it was, when we got I had submitted an application for the school maintenance matching grant, $50,000 the state gives you for construction, $50,000 you have to put in as a district. And once COVID hit, our needs changed. I mean, even when we look at what we're doing now, with Amoresco, for example, with the ESSER grant money. So I had petitioned to, or sent a plea into the state if they would allow us to amend that, because all of our grants are amendable, and they would not let us amend that grant. So I have not felt comfortable spending any of that money, even though it's been received, because you can always send it back if you don't use it at no penalty. So, but I'm just kind of waiting because they've given us about almost 2 years to decide how and if we would use it. And I'm kind of waiting to see what our needs are. That being said, another school maintenance grant has come available, and I went ahead and applied for that. So if we do get that grant, then I could take that money now and move it towards the projects that we are doing with Amoresco for our building. And that would just make more sense to me. So I have not heard back yet from the state, but I wanted to let you know I have applied for that again, and wanted to remind the board as why we have not spent the maintenance grant from a couple years ago at this point.
Have you heard what that amount would be?
Right now, it's basically the same. It's a free $50,000 they give you to match with. So wanted to give you an update on that. As far as cash flow goes, just looking at the treasurer's report, you've seen the cash flow in. There's not a lot to say about it right now. I just monitor that monthly. I wanted to see how we're doing after a quarter. And the key identifying with the cash flow will come more in around February and March, when I could see just getting into the last quarter. But this is just a nice tool for me, along with the other documents that we use, so I can keep track of how we're doing, money in, money out, that type of thing. We did get our second tax settlement already, so that's good news. Our treasurer for Vermilion County, and we should be expecting the next one here in November. So that's really good news in terms of revenue for the school district. So I wanted to share that with you, and you have the preview of the document that I'll be sending out in the next few days as far as the October newsletter. Just got some basic information on there. I wanted to highlight that this next week is Principals Appreciation Week, with the 29th being a Principals Appreciation. And so you'll see that I will put that out there to say thank you to our principals. I've had a chance to have a one-on-one lunch with our 2 assistant principals here, and I've got it scheduled with our other 3 principals. And it's just a time for us to sit down, have lunch together, talk about their goals and any other topics that they have. And I just want to, share with the board that we are very, very blessed here with the great leaders we have in our school system. I also want to mention Michelle Kimbrough. There's not really an appreciation that goes for curriculum coordinators or technology coordinators, but I'm just want to let you know that I appreciate you both as well in the work that you do, because you're all part of the cabinet that makes things work so well for our school district. So I wanted to mention that. Also, you'll see in there about National School Bus Safety Week, just appreciation for our transportation coordinator and director and our bus drivers. That'll be in there. There's some information on the calendar about this week and some upcoming events. A little bit about mission and vision currently, without the adjustments that are coming soon. Just a note about district goal. You've already heard about the facilities update tonight. The nurses have a newsletter of information that went out. And our new student resource officer, I had a chance to meet recently with Sergeant Smitley, and a lot of the programs educationally and services that she is bringing is just taking us to a whole nother level, I think, for our kids in our school district. And I just feel like that in our school district, I've worked with a lot of different SROs in the past, and I just really feel like that we've been very fortunate with the ones that we've had since I've been here. I can speak to. They are all about supporting kids and families and bringing education to our kids and resources. So You'll see that she has put together a newsletter, for you there as well, in terms of communication. We've got a spotlight tonight. I'm going to ask later when we do an action item for Mrs. Lacey Pribble, our new social worker. So I'll let Mrs. Acton speak to her a little bit later on, as well as another action item for a new Oakwood Grade School Financial Secretary. So those are just some things highlighted there, and wanted to bring that to your attention for the newsletter so you get a chance to see that before that goes out. You also will note that some of the discussions we've had recently, I know Mrs. Ludwig and I had talked a little bit about this in the past. You've got a sheet that's got the past 5 years of attendance that Chris Richardson has put together for us, and I thought that would be really helpful. I'd asked him to kind of pull up some data from the last 5 years, especially given some of so we would have actual numbers on what has been going on since we've experienced COVID in terms of absenteeism and that type of thing. So, Chris, I just want to commend you on excellent work on this document here and bringing that out. So just a good resource for you as you look at, sometimes we might think that the numbers are just really extremely high in terms of absences. And I think what we'll see is that it really was a lot better than I anticipated, in some areas. So just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention. And I also want to talk a bit about as you know, in October, not all superintendents do this. This is a practice that is good for me, and I think helps me to be better prepared. But when I do the tax levy in December, I have about 3 steps that I go through. And the first one is in October, I like to provide the Board of Education a preliminary tax levy of what we'll be asking to cover our expenses to meet our budget for the upcoming year. And I do that on one of my own spreadsheets. I don't do that on the official State Board of Education spreadsheet, okay? And then the second step I do is that in November, that's when I'll get more updated information from our county assessor. I'll get EAV percentage assumptions because I don't have that in October typically. I'll get that in November, so that will make my presentation to you in November even more accurate. And when I get that information from the assessor on EAV, any new property, that's anticipated, anything like that, all of that factors in. And so that way, then when I get to December, then we'll have our public hearing, and that will be the most fine-tuned document that I can have available for our school district at the public hearing. And then obviously we have to approve that going into the end of December so we can get that filed for our revenues. With that being said, I have the preliminary one. You saw it in your packet. I also have a hard copy here. And so there's information this is not all conclusive right now. But I wanted to point out there's 2 goals of things that we need to talk about tonight, and not only tonight, but also in November, December. One is, the first goal is to not have a tax increase, okay, on our public. All right, number 1, okay? And we can do that. We can meet that. That's not going to be a problem, okay? So that's number 1 goal. The second goal is that we have a unique year this year. You've heard me talking about it for a little over a year now, about the Oakwood Village TIF that is expiring. So if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about that for a few minutes and do a little bit of explaining of what that is, because that greatly impacts the levy process, okay? So I'm going to talk about that here for just a moment, if you will, and try to entertain any questions. I had placed a green sheet there for you. You can take with you, and anyone can have this. It's basically just general information about what a TIF is that the village has right now. Now, one of the things that I think is a benefit at Oakwood that is not experienced everywhere is that we have a very good relationship with school, community, and the village. And that's a credit to the people. That's not always the case, especially when you're talking about TIFs, because in general, when you have a TIF, which I'll explain more here in a minute, there is money that is not going to the school district over a period of time. But when a TIF expires, it can be extended another time. But at this point, you only get 1 extension on that, okay? When that happens, that means that the money that is coming in now gets to go back to your school district. Okay, so I had been in communication with the previous mayor, Mr. Clay Woodard, to make sure that I knew kind of the timelines were, and I go to those meetings, obviously each spring. And he had informed me that they would not be extending it again because it's already been extended one time. And I wanted to not be presumptuous, and we have a good relationship with the current mayor, Heather McCarty. And I reached out to her just to double check with her to make sure that that was still the situation and I wasn't missing anything. And then I also contacted county clerk's office to make sure that what we think we have on file with the TIF is what the county has on file, so we don't miss anything along the way. So just a few highlights I wanted to bring to you. The Vermilion County Clerk's Office in September of 2020 last year, I double checked this with them. Oakwood has 2 TIFs in the village, okay? And when we talk about a TIF, we're talking about a tax increment financing, okay? So the first TIF was originally set to expire in December of 2012, okay? Some of you may remember that. And that was originally set to expire then, but it was extended to December 31st of this year. All right, so that's why we're having this conversation. You only get one extension allowable. Now, TIF 2 is not set to expire for several more years, like 2036. That's the smaller TIF, okay? The big TIF is the one that's expiring. Could be, I'll be getting numbers from Heather. She's putting those together for me, so we'll have an idea. But it won't surprise me if that number is around $300,000, which is interesting because it's very similar to what a sales tax would do to help us that has not passed in the county. This is also money that we have lived without forever, okay, for at least 25 to 30 years coming in. So it's not something that we need to meet our needs and to pay our bills, so to speak. It's something that's extra that we could move into the working cash fund, okay, and then have that available for the projects that we want to do, for example, with facilities, okay? So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. Now, let me talk about what a tax increment financing is. This is the TIF that the village has, okay? This is not something school districts do. It's not a tax increase. And I think just the TIF in and of itself is a bad terminology, okay? Because when you hear about tax increment financing, you start thinking through those words, you start thinking about tax increases, and that's not what it is. But it could get confusing. What it is, it was a tool that our village used to help their local government restore most areas. It can be used for maybe some rundown areas. It can be used to jumpstart economically sluggish parts of town. That's in general how that money can be used, and to do some upgrades, for your community, which eventually helps your EAV, which benefits everyone. And we've had an increase in EAV every year. And it's because of the work that's been done, really, and the good stewardship of our village. It really is. Okay. So TIFs help local governments attract private development and new businesses. We've seen that. TIFs help local governments make improvements that they need, like roads, sewers, water mains, sidewalks. If you drive around town now, you'll see a lot of sidewalks are being redone. That's part of what that does. So, and it also allows for incentives in redevelopment. So a tax increment, it'll talk about this in that document a little bit, but in general, it's the difference between the amount of property tax revenue generated before a TIF district is established and the amount of property tax revenue generated after the TIF district has its new development. A TIF does not reduce property tax revenues available to other taxing bodies except for schools, okay? So schools do not get a part of that. Schools can go to your TIFs and local government and ask for things. And I don't know if we've done that in the past or not, but that is something that you can do. So the bottom line is that the reason I'm talking about this, because this TIF that is getting ready to expire in December 31st of 2021 we will still receive the money for tax year 2021. It'll be payable in 2022. Okay, remember, we're always a year behind. So the following year in 2022, payable in 2023 would when the school district should start seeing the additional funds that would no longer be going to the TIF. All right, so here's a quick version. Bottom line is TIF is getting ready to expire, and we know it's going to expire. To do that, we have to levy differently than what we've done in the past, which means we're going to have a truth in taxation hearing, okay, prior to the levy, because we're going to have to make sure that whenever we do this, if we don't levy and ask for this extra money that's coming in, you don't receive it. So it's all about asking. At the end of the day, you're only going to get what they're allowed to give you anyway. But if we do not ask for this, then we've got essentially $300,000 that the school district would not capture, and that's how much money would be left on the table, and that would be a huge financial mistake. Okay, so that's why I'm spending a lot of time preparing and getting us ready for this, because this is an unusual year, an unusual situation, but because we're going to exceed the ask of 5%, we have to do a truth and taxation hearing. We're not increasing taxes. It's all about asking to capture the money that the village is no longer going to get, and we want to capture that as it transitions over to the school district. So this is an important step that we need to make sure so we don't make a financial error in that. And I'm sorry to take so long to talk about this, but I just think it's something that we all need to be able to understand and be aware of moving forward. And I will talk about this again in November and again in December, so that people understand that it's because of this TIF expiring that we need to make sure that we have a higher ask. And but it will not increase the taxes. We're just trying to capture the money that's going to transition from the village to potentially the school district.
What is your 5%? You know? What the limit is at 5%? How much are you going to go over your 5%?
I think to capture that, we'll probably have to levy right around 15%, what it would be. Okay, so I'll know more after meeting with the assessor and getting the EAV, and I'll know more after I get the actual numbers from Heather. But I'm just trying to, right now, it's all about assumptions and projections. Okay. So I'm going to give you this sheet here. This is just a copy. Again, this is preliminary. And on the second sheet, we can show you what it was last year. And again, this is not the official form that I'll fill out, but it's just a preliminary sheet that I like to use as far as where we were last year and what it would look like this year. And this will change. This won't be the same one you'll see in November. It won't be the same one that you will see in December. But I want to at least give you a hard copy. I've got some extra copies here. If anyone needs one, just see me after the meeting. But really, Mr. Smith, that was the most of what I needed to talk about tonight. See if there were any questions. I hope I explained that a little bit. Hope it's not clear as mud. I hope it's fairly clear as far as the situation that we're in as a school, which is a great opportunity that we have before us right now. So, you have any questions for me?
I think, like I said, I think the most important thing is we're not looking to increase taxes 15%.
Exactly.
I use the analogy of the pie. We're getting the entire pie again, because now there could be a $300,000 piece that we're not getting now because we weren't able to.
Exactly.
But we still have to make the ask to get that money. People aren't going to see tax bills raised. The intent is to capture that entire piece now that's out there.
That's exactly correct.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Do you need that IMRF like an increase to be 38%?
We
Is
do.
that going to be
Yeah, we cut that back a couple years ago because it was so high, and then
it's hurt you?
yeah,
Are you paying out of another account to?
not yet.
But
Not
you're
yet.
going to be.
It's getting closer.
Okay.
And we had that, if you remember, we had that penalty this year. from back in 2015. It was about 80,000. And that, we're paying that this year. That's why we're having a deficit of about 77,000. Because without that, we were right where we needed to be budget-wise.
So this will level it out.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Exactly. That's a good question, because one of the things that I do when I watch that fund, I always talk to our auditor and just talk about our levels of where we're at. He will guide me and say, listen, you need to back off your levy this year. You're getting a little bit too much in reserve. And then the following year, hopefully be balanced out. But it was that penalty that kind of threw us off a little bit this year.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Dineski?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't overdoing it in that account.
Yeah,
You had nowhere else to spend that money except on.
exactly. Yep. And I'll get a chance to look at things a little bit more closely, through the budget, the next month or so and EAV, but
How much different is that second tip? It's much smaller, if I remember correctly.
yes, I don't remember exactly what that was. Off the top of my head, I was thinking it was around $35,000, something of that nature. And I think, again, don't quote me on this, but I think that was about the amount. And I think it was more related to some of the downtown specific area versus a lot of the new development that was done outside of town. But I can get those numbers more accurately for you if you would like.
We're still a couple years out.
Yeah, couple years. Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Maynard? Is that your last?
Thank you.
Mr. Maynard?
Yes, sir.
As we go through these again, some of the administrators couldn't be here, so if I hit and miss, I'm sorry. Curriculum, Ms. Kimbrough.
We received IAR results last week, and our map, we closed the window, and so I'll be going through assessment results and working with the interventionist who's dealing with math at the grade school, Jenny Gavati, who's a Title I teacher, dealing with reading. Already kind of started a spreadsheet and just kind of getting everybody where they need to be. Is going to be the focus this next week. And besides all the grants and everything else going on, that's something new on the plate, so. That's
Ms. Kimbrough, Mr. Ogle couldn't be here. Mr. Shelton.
The athletic report, just, I'll give you guys a copy, so I'll kind of skim over some highlights, cross country. We'll be beating the regionals this Saturday at Chrisman. And they've had a pretty successful season. They did a great job with the Oakwood invite, and several top finishers, 3 of the top 4 actually there on the girls' side of things. They just recently finished up their regular season, and we had one senior we honored on senior night there at Kickapoo. As far as football, if you guys attended last week, we had Marty McFarland at football dedication night, so I want to thank Mr. Maynard and anyone else who was there in attendance to the school board for donating the money for the signs and helping out in that regard. I heard back from the family, and they were thrilled with the dedication and just the moved by everyone's generosity in that, and just thought it was a wonderful night. Even though we wish it would have been a little more dry than what it was, but anyhow, yeah, the family really enjoyed that. So, and then the football team's final game this season will be this Friday night at Salt Fork. So that'll be their final game this year. The golf team has wrapped up their season. We had one golfer that admitted to sectionals, Case Lopez. We're really proud of him. And the whole golf team has everyone back next year, so it's fantastic. So it was a year of improvement, but we're looking forward to good things out of them next year. And then soccer wrapped up their season as well this past Friday night. But man, what a great season. They almost won 20 games. I think it was 18 in all. Knocked off the #1 seed in the regional at STM, and took Monticello all the way to the finish. Lost 1-0 in the regional final. And really proud of the 2 seniors we have this year, and they just played great. But man, also another loaded squad going back next year, so something we really look forward to. So great year for the soccer team. And then volleyball, they won last night at Sharman, that was in my notes, that they won there. And then they'll also be playing in their regionals here on Monday next week. They'll be playing Bismarck at the St. Joe Regional on Monday night. So that's that. And then we're starting to get prepared for winter sports. Girls basketball will kick off on November the 1st. And then boys basketball and wrestling, as well as cheerleading, will start their fall season, or the winter season, on November the 8th. So that's that's kind of the athletic report. So that's all I have.
Ms. Shelton, Ms. Burton and Ms. Lepenis are at their buildings. Ms. Acton.
Right. In my report, I think I mentioned that we did have some new hires, but that'll be later in the board meeting. We have started with our student of the month and some of our behavior plans and our celebrations. We're going to have our first school-wide assembly. We haven't had one in 2 years, so we're going to stagger it, but the kids are super excited to be rewarded for great behavior. So that's tomorrow. In my new report, we talk about our attendance. To echo what Mr. Maynard said, honestly, the SRO has been phenomenal to work with. CNI and the ROV truancy officer visited 12 families today. And it's definitely difficult what we see, but I know that we are making a difference and hopefully helping those students to come back to school and meeting their needs. So I can't say enough about those two ladies and going with me to our home visits. I'll talk about the basketball later on tonight. We've completed our building drills. Jeremy Evans came for the first time in 2 years and was able to do the fire safety house, and the kids actually get to crawl through the house and there's smoke and all of that. We invited our pre-K students this year to participate, and they loved it. They drew the artwork that's in my report. Jeremy is also doing something different this year. He's coming and actually reading with the kids some fire safety books to make it be more of a presence where the kids can feel comfortable talking to him. Misty Smithley is also reading books with kids and having lunch with certain students and student groups. Evaluations are in full force. Our SEL curriculum that we ended up choosing, the Choose Love, is phenomenal to watch in the classroom. If you ever get a moment, it is great to watch these kids read these books and act out some of their emotions, and our teachers are doing a wonderful job with that curriculum. Transportation, I had hoped to speak tonight about one of the programs we're considering for the safety of our students at dismissal. However, Mr. Maynard and I had to cancel that meeting. I got subpoenaed, so we have it this coming Thursday, and I'll be able to share with the board more about looking at different ways to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our dismissal process. That's everything for me.
Any questions from Ms. Acton? Technology, Mr. Richardson.
I just wanted to touch on one thing in addition to my report. One of the costly things that is gonna come out of our end of the construction project was we would have needed to move the tower that currently sends the internet signal from the grade school to the junior high because it's literally right there where they're building. I got the quote on that. It was about $8,000, a lot higher than I expected. Luckily, Michelle was able to email the digital equity grant consultant. And because it's helping with the connection to the building, we're actually going to be able to throw that onto that grant. So that helps out immensely, and that should prevent no downtime to the junior high during the construction. So really excited about that.
It's great.
If anybody has any other questions for me or anything?
Just to kind of add on that, the digital equity was, they weren't gonna do a second one, and they decided to do it, and I was kind of worried about what we would put in it, but it was able to move the antenna, and it will be the new firewall.
Yep.
For the district, and then.
Hopefully we'll be able to throw all the networking into the new building into that too. So that's a pretty good chunk out of there. So that'll help quite a bit. I mean, we'll be able to, we have all the equipment, it's just running the cables and everything. So that will help immensely with that.
That's great.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Ms. Lund,
She's not able to be here
I
tonight.
will be here. Mr. Siddons.
A couple things I got. I did file a claim with Ameren on the possibly voltage issues we had at the grade school. So I started that process. Talking with them, it looks like it's going to be 2 or 3 months of paperwork and fighting back and forth. Hopefully, we can get maybe some reimbursement on that, but there's no guarantee. And the other thing is, I was talking about 2 years ago, Mr. Brewer, which is one of the students at high school, was talking about Cub Scout or Boy Scout. He is still wanting to do that. I think we're gonna push that on this fall if everything goes, because of the way COVID and everything was. He's still wanting to do it, so that's a 20 by 24 pavilion, and we'll put it out on the east playground area. And when I get everything finalized with him, I'll probably get with Mr. Lieutenant and Ms. Acton, Larry and I, and try to decide where we actually really want to put it, so that best, because we've been talking about doing a lot of walks and different things out there, so we want to make sure we put it in the right position so we can use it, best. It's a possibility teachers go out there and have some classroom time and stuff too, so. He's still looking to do that, so I got some news on that this week, so that's a plus, so we're moving forward with that now.
What was the voltage issue? I guess I don't.
We, Ameren supposedly kept their low voltage down in the community, and a lot of times when you do that, it affects big motors and people. You don't see as much in the residential, but it really hit us hard, so I'm hoping that we can do something. I think we've got it fixed. We haven't had any issues since Ameren's come out. They've had to do some refiguring on the transformer and different things, so hopefully we have that problem solved.
Any questions for Mr. Siddons? Okay. Agenda item number 6, OEA. It's Mr. Johnson's with parent-teacher conference. I understand he did not have anything to report, correct?
I talked with Mr. Johnson today. He said he didn't have anything to add tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Maynard, the way I understand, we didn't have any FOIA requests either this month.
Correct, no requests.
Agenda item number 8, old business. We are discussing the 5th and 6th grade basketball update. Second.
And then out some updated information. I believe Mr. Mayor has shared a lot of this already with you, but there's been some.
Thank you.
Just scan through some of it to share with you. After the September board meeting and being asked to revisit the 5th and 6th grade basketball program, at the request of a parent that was here at the meeting, Mr. Hunsberger, we met as a team, so Mrs. Burton and I met with Mr. Hunsberger and just wanted to get his feedback, kind of problem solve, see what we could come up with to offer some options for the boys. One of the things that came out of the meeting is that Mr. Hunsberger, at that point when he spoke, he had not reached out to any teams. So the number that he gave the board that night was just a number that was based on previous data. So he had not reached out to any teams at that point because we were still unsure if there would still be teams to play. It would be a year-long option for him if we wanted to include him because he does have a 6th grade boy. He would be willing to volunteer, but he's also interested in a stipend if that is available. And he was comfortable keeping the 5th grade program with PTO. He didn't know that that was an option. So we kind of met with him and explained some things to him, also with his Title IX, that what we offer to the boys, we must offer to the girls. And that put us in the time crunch because the girls' season is starting to wrap up. So we kind of brainstormed and came up with a couple of different things. One of the first things that I did is I emailed the Three Rivers Conference, that's the conference that the junior high belongs to, of the area teams, to see if there would be anyone willing to do some sixth grade scrimmages with us. I gave the update as of 9:30. Not much has changed since then. Westville is a no, but we do have a couple of yeses and maybes. The maybe is definitely interested. It's just that at that point, they didn't have their numbers. But if they have the numbers, they are in and they want to have it happen. So I do think that we will come up with between 4 and 5 games if I'm being optimistic and the program's optimistic, so.
Schwerman will play, and Salt Fork as a team.
They do, they can't figure out a way to get us on the schedule.
Ooh.
So
Well,
they shut that down real quick.
we'll figure out a way to get you on.
Thank you. We appreciate it. So after we had that initial meeting with Mr. Huntsberger, I went to Mr. Maynard, provided some information. And one thing that Mr. Lynn brought up that I appreciated was let's get some updated information as how many players we have now, because the data was from March and April of last year. So we surveyed the boys, got a really good feel of how many sixth grade boys would be willing to play. 15 expressed interest. However, unfortunately, 7 were currently failing at the time. But with that said, I'm trying to see the glass half full, that maybe if there was a sport that they could work towards, that maybe they would stay eligible. So I'm trying to stay positive, but eligibility is an issue. So we went to a second meeting with Mr. Lee, Parker Lee, who is the 7th grader JV coach, and also brought Mr. Huntsberger in. Parker was wonderful to work with. He is really interested in building up the program as well. He said we can make the 6th grade work as far as doing pre-games or games just for 6th graders. He said he would love to have the 6th graders at practice with him because it does push those kids and give them scrimmage time in those practices. We kind of developed with Mrs. Burton's help kind of a tentative schedule, but again, that was not being able to confirm this without the board's approval. But this is kind of a tentative schedule of what we could come up with. To stay in regulation with Title IX and make sure that we are following that, we are trying to secure some girls' 6th grade games as well right now, just so that we can at least say that we offered that to the girls. The boys basketball can't officially start, but they have had some open gyms and some parent meetings. And so this is the numbers that I got from Parker Lee as of last night. There are 14 6th grade boys, 14 7th grade boys, and 8 8th grade boys. And again, eligibility cuts those numbers in almost half across. So, but again, I'm trying to stay optimistic. They might be able to keep it up. Parker also brought something to our attention too, is that we want to make sure that our students are following discipline and behavior expectations, and some of the players on this list were not. So we want to make sure that those expectations are being followed. Parker said so far it's going okay, and everything's going well. So the questions that I do have to the board is that if we go ahead and keep the program as is, are we comfortable with having that 6th grade component? Will the 6th grade coach be a volunteer or stipend position?
I think the answer to that may be already taken care of in our collective bargaining agreement. I looked into this since our last meeting, and I believe that position is already available in our collective bargaining agreement. So that would answer that question. And as far as collective bargaining, again, sorry, I'm just kind of jumping in here, Miss Acton. I apologize. Just trying to help here a little bit. But yes, it does have to be open internally first. It's an extracurricular position, but yet still needs to be made available internally first.
And then Parker thought that he could secure some officials to run the sixth grade scrimmage games from different people. From Harlan Bruin was one name, but also Parker has some other contacts that he would like to get some of the younger gentlemen in the community to start wanting to possibly be officials and get them, which I love because it's getting harder and harder to find officials.
Great idea.
So I love that Parker suggested that. So to me, it would be a great training opportunity for those young men to learn how to be officials, and then also for the boys who are actually playing. So that's something that if the board is okay with, Parker would like to kind of help lead and get secure that. Also, Mr. Shelton and I spoke, and he's a sports enthusiast like myself, and he's kind of got the itch to coach just a little bit too. And so he was contemplating running a lower grade level basketball program in conjunction or independently from PTO. And so,
Yeah, so well, I had an opportunity to speak with Ms. Acton as well as some other parents in the community, and I have a past of coaching basketball as well, especially the youth levels, and I did not know until recently there was a PTO that was involved in that, so I was a little weary of stepping on anyone's toes or doing anything like that, but I do have weekends available when I wouldn't have supervisions at the high school, and I've recently coached third and fourth grade girls for several years in the past, while also doing an administrative job. So I usually do that on the weekends and then also on the weekends we go and go play some games. Yeah, so we did some of that. However, I did find a parent, Nicole Johnson, who's also a teacher in the district, that was willing to help me do that as well. Our initial thought was to start November the 7th on that Sunday, we'll have an afternoon to get started with that. And we're looking for a boys coach maybe to do third and fourth grade. And if we do not, then I'll coach them both. We'll just do fundamentals and we'll do that kind of thing here at Oakwood. And that way there's not a learning gap that this happens, and then it can help the fifth and sixth grade program if it's resurrected, or even seventh and eighth grade further on. So that's kind of what I was thinking. So at this point, we're still looking for volunteers, maybe coach boys, if anyone's interested. Okay, all right. I haven't talked to you yet. Okay, but, so, I'm hoping that, in the past, I want to make sure that it's okay that we are able to use the gym facilities, even though it may or may not be a school team, but it'll be all Oakwood athletics and all Oakwood students. So, I guess I'm asking the board, is that okay to do that with that? Yeah. Sign a waiver or anything like that?
Yeah, I think as long as we have staff members involved, that are leading it, then it's a pretty easy situation.
Okay.
Because we don't have to worry about like an external club that would have to provide insurance and that type of thing.
Sure.
So it's great.
You want me to go through the protocols? That's not a question I would have.
What's that?
You want to go through the protocols, the concussion, et cetera? I mean, if you do, you'll just have to have them go through that. You do.
Mr. Janeski is just reminding about the concussion protocols, IHSA, IESA. You probably have that already anyway,
Absolutely.
I would think, as an AD. So.
I know Randy asked me to not speak and be quieter. So I do want to I think it's great what you're working on, and it's for the kids, and I've heard feedback already that Parker being there has just made a big difference. And I heard numbers even higher, but I think what happened was there were a lot of kids that showed up at that open gym that weren't necessarily going out, but I just think it's a great thing to do, and I'm all for it. So
thank you.
appreciate the extra work and the hoops you had to jump through to make this happen. Thank you. That's on them,
Great.
Any other questions for Ms. Atkins? Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item number 9, closed session. We have no need to go into closed session. Agenda item 10, consideration action. As a reminder, hiring is always contingent upon successful completion of background checks. First off, agenda item 10A, we have a recommendation to approve the Regional Office of Education number 54 annual agreement invoice regarding the Drug Awareness Resistance Education Program.
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Motion by Janeski, seconded by Hicks to approve the DARE program as presented. Hicks.
Yes.
Janeski.
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Ludwig. Yes. Plattner.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Bradford. Yes. Motion carried by roll call vote 2.
Agenda item 10B, we have a recommendation to employ Lacey Cribble as a social worker for Oakwood Grade School beginning on October 21st, 2021, due to the long-term absence of our current social worker and opening for the 2022-23 school year, as she will be on step 9 with a master's degree. Ms. Acton?
All right, so Lacey came to our building last week with her daughter, so she will be bringing a kindergarten daughter into our school, and she sent an email following her visit that I'd like to share with you. I'm so excited to be joining you all in a few days. I want to tell you a little bit about myself before I begin on Thursday. I've been working at Danville District 118 for 5 years. She worked at Northridge Middle School, Southwest Elementary, and in 21-22 she was placed at Markton Lynn. But a new door has opened, and now she is proud to be an Oakwood Comment pending approval. Prior to working in education, she was a mental health outpatient therapist for 10 years, working with adolescents in Vermillion County and the Vermillion County Juvenile Detention Center. She loves working with youth and is very passionate about helping others succeed. As Mrs. LaPena stated to our staff, I love being into classrooms, pushing into classrooms, and providing SEL lessons. So please reach out to me if you would like lessons for your classrooms. She has a lot of great ideas about facilitating small groups and doing lunch groups. She enjoys crafting, baking, shopping, and reading, and they are so excited to be a part of the OGS family.
Can you explain one thing to me? Can you explain the long-term absence of our current social worker and the opening for the 22?
I can. It's FMLA situation.
Does that mean that they're not coming back next year at all, when you say due to?
She is in her retirement year,
Okay,
and then we've got an FMLA situation
all right, thanks.
as well. Sure.
And the other part of that is, I think I can put her in ESER 3 for learning loss because it's an additional salary. So I should be able to take care of her salary this year while we have to.
Okay, thanks.
And that'll be a nice slide over then next year for that gap.
Do I have a motion to approve the employment of Lacey Cribble as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Motion by Plattner, seconded by Janeski to approve the employment of Lacey Cribble as presented. Janeski.
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Ludwig. Yes. Plattner.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Bradford. Hicks.
Yes.
Motion carried by roll call vote 3.
Agenda item 10C, we have a recommendation to approve the hiring of Lacey Beck as the Oakwood Grade School Financial Secretary beginning on November 1st, 2021. She would start on step 1 of the ESP hourly rate of pay schedule. Ms. Acton?
All right, so Ms. LaPena and I interviewed 9 different candidates. We had some wonderful people interview, and it was a very difficult decision, but I think Lacey's opening statement said it all. She says, I love kids and I want to be here. So it was a great fit, we feel like, for our financial secretary. She has worked at a bank for 5 years. Although she's not a native of Oakwood, she married a person from Oakwood, and they have a student who is, I believe, kindergarten age, so she will have children in the district, and she's really excited about joining our team.
Do I have a motion to approve the hiring of Lacey Beck as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Motion by Ludwig, seconded by Hicks to approve the employment of Lacey Beck as presented. Lynn.
Yes.
Ludwig. Yes. Plattner.
Yes.
Yes.
Bradford. Hicks.
Yes.
Janeski.
Yes.
Motion carried by roll call vote 4.
Agenda item number 11, other new business. Mr. Mayor, I don't think we had any discussion on
I don't have any unless the board does.
Agenda item number 12, our next regular meeting is going to be November 17th, 2021 at 5:30 PM. That night, we'll also have the superintendent report on the tentative tax levy. And then December 15th at 5:15 PM will be the tax levy public hearing for the truth in taxation. Do I have a motion to adjourn at 6:36 PM?
So moved.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Motion by Lynn, second by Plattner to adjourn at 6:36 PM. Ludwig? Yes. Plattner?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Bradford? Yes. Hicks?
Yes.
Janeski?
Yes.
Motion carried by roll call vote. Is this the quickest